I was saying I was getting some major feedback, but I'm not probably things I needed to get it fixed.
Mr. Speaker.
Okay, you're not talking first anyway.
This honorable house resume its sitting. Good morning, everyone. Once again, I have to apologize for the late start. We will resume the debate. I now call on Honorable Alvaro Keynes, member of the 6th District.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to say these few words. And a woman of few words I am. I'm just hoping one day if I decide I need more than 2 hours, I'll be allotted that more than 2 hours. But thank you for allowing me to say the words. Everyone, permit me, Mr. Speaker, to look at my notes. Everyone should be aware that a budget is just an estimate of funds to be received. We can get more or we can get less. But with our Heavenly Father blessings, we will get more on this budget cycle for next year. One of the first things I looked at when I looked through the budget was, is there anything for District 6? Was there anything allocated for District 6? And then I sighed. Finally, finally, money for the long-awaited roadworks and retaining wall for that area in Boggers Bay just above the ball field and the school. And I was elated that finally those people would be able to now drive home instead of parking on the field and have to walk up. It's been long, long overdue, and I thank the Minister of Finance for finally realizing that great need that is needed for those people. After that, I scanned through the budget a bit more and I went to health as I am interested in home care. There are many persons waiting on a list to get home care attention. And though the money has increased, I still think, Mr. Minister, it needs topping up a bit because I understand the needs of these people and some of them can't afford to pay the $10 or $12 an hour for home care for their loved ones. So, as I said, if the good Lord blesses us with more than we budgeted for, I will push for that top up for home care as well as for the Recreation Trust, which I think has always been grossly underfunded for years. The Recreation Trust needs much attention, a lot more money. During the last year, I have been able to complete the Fisherman's Wharf in Boggers Bay, where we had a district party this year. On Sunday gone, we had a district party, which was well attended. Everyone had fun, laughter. It was a good afternoon. Families got together, sat, talked, drank, eat. Kids competed in different contests, which was our first. So we made it more interested, and the atmosphere at the Fisherman Wharf was really nice. It's a relaxing area. Every day I see couples, children just sitting around having lunch or having dinner. And I am thankful that I was able to get this wharf to where it is at this point. There's still some more work, but thank God it's come a long way. And I am grateful again to the minister. I'm grateful to Minister Vincent Whitley, who jumped in at the beginning too, to help me get this place come to fruition. I'm truly grateful. We were able to finish the basketball court in Bellevue. I'm hoping that next year or year after we'll be able to complete the community center in that area. But at least we got the open basketball court done. so that the youths up there will have some place to go and do their exercises. The school will have access to do their recreation with their kids there as well. So we've come a long way in the past year. Presently, there are lots of drain cleaning, bush cutting, some beautification projects going on. Some we have completed, some are still going on right now in Bogus Bay. As you can see when you pass on the roadside, there's painting of the guardrail, painting of the sidewalks, there's bush being cut to make the district look a bit more appealing, especially in this tourism season. During the pandemic, we were able to help so many persons during that time that it amazes me. The fishermen business are now booming, and I don't think there's anyone in this country can say they can't find fish at any given day, because fishermen are all about selling fish. It has become a big business for many of them. Some of those who weren't even fishermen are now fishing, and they're making it a career and they're making money from it. So that I am glad. To the farmers, the farmer business is also blooming. And I would encourage the local people to please buy local. Some persons like to argue about the price of what the farmers charge, but you're paying for a good product without um, steroids or any added thing to it. So I would encourage you. Yes, the price might be high, but support your locals and buy for their locals. Persons have been stressed during this COVID era. Businesses have lost a lot of revenue, but back, we're coming back slowly but surely. And I would say this without fair contradiction, I would rather have been under the leadership of Premier Foy in a pandemic such as this. He amplifies leadership in getting things done, getting business back up and running. And for this, I know a lot of persons are grateful, and I myself am grateful because I don't know how I would have done it if I was in his position. So I thank you, Premier Foy, for your leadership during this time, at a time like this. And God has truly chosen you to lead us in a time such as this, and I don't think anyone else could have done it better. So we continue to pray for you. Continue. I ask you all to continue to pray for this government as we lead this country into the next year and years after that. I would like to take this time to wish the people, the constituent of my district, Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. Last night we were through the district on the Christmas truck, which is organized by a good premier each year. And the joy I saw on most persons' faces, and I appreciate your phone calls, but it wasn't just me alone. It's a government thing that the premier felt that it would be good to do, and I am thankful for your comments. We just wanted to spread a little joy, a little cheer in the districts, because we know what persons are up against, the stress, involving with the pandemic. So if we could help to relieve a little stress, sometimes it's not always money, but it's just to see the faces and hear a good cheer, and the songs that went out through the district, it goes a long way. So sometimes it's not always money, it's just that caring aspect as a person, going to another person and just saying Merry Christmas, going through the district singing carols, it makes a big difference. So I thank you so much for your comments last night, and I do not wish, but I hope and I know that next year will be a more prosperous year for the BVI. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for saying these few words.
Thank you, Honorable Keynes, member of the 6th District. Just as last night we spoke and we talked about time limits. So I just want to inform the public again that there's still a 2 hour speaking limit. When it's 10 minutes in your speech, I will again give you a heads up so you could close off. Just a gentle reminder to everyone as well. At this time, I call Honorable Vincent O. Wheatley, Minister of Natural Resources and Labor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to say a few words on this Appropriation Act 2022. Mr. Speaker, like was said before, this is my fourth go round at a budget remarks, a budget speech. First one being when we came in 2019.
Excuse me, Honorable. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It seems as if we're not being heard on ZBVI, so at this moment I'll call a short recess 5 minutes till we get online. This house is on recess. Honorable House, resume its sitting. Once again, I would like to apologize for the inconvenience in terms of not being on the radio. I now call on the Honorable Vincent O. Wheatley to give his remarks and debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once more, good morning to all. It's indeed an honor to be able to give my contribution on the Appropriation Act 2022. Mr. Speaker, before I even get into the meat of the matter, I want to say a few things about this process. Okay, Mr. Speaker, persons often don't understand how we get to this stage. A budget, like Honorable Kane said, is a guess, an estimate of what you hope to make and what you hope to spend. It takes a full team working for many, many months, using many, many metrics to figure out what the future is going to hold for this territory. And I must commend the FS and his team and the Minister of Finance for bringing this budget again on a very timely basis. This is our fourth budget budget exercise that we are going through. And it's quite fitting that it be done today, because today is a very special day in Bay Area's history. It's the birthday of our late Premier, Honorable R.T. O'Neill, December 15th. Had he been alive today, he would be 88 years. May his soul forever rest in peace. No one takes it as anything that we passed in a budget in December, but this hasn't happened in many, many years. I think we have consistently passed our budgets in December, as they should, to take effect for the following year. Now, the reason why a budget is so important to us is that, like I said before, it kind of sets the tone and the tenor for where the country is going. So anyone looking at the budget will have a very good idea of what the values and what the priorities of a particular government is. And again, I must commend the Premier for making sure our very first budget was passed, I think, in April of 2019, not in December. It is very, very important. Also, this budget, like was said earlier, we are one of two overseas territories that don't have deficit budgets. Now, some persons may look at that and just say, well, that's no big deal. What's the big deal with a deficit budget? But, Mr. Speaker, these things have consequences. They do have consequences. You do not want to be in a deficit budget during a pandemic. One member said you can't run a country in the backs of the businesses and the taxpayers. You also cannot be foolish during a pandemic, because a pandemic don't have a start date and an end date. And you cannot, Mr. Speaker, compare a pandemic to a hurricane. You know exactly when it's coming. It lasts a few hours. The destruction is very finite, so to speak. You can calculate that. But when you're dealing with a pandemic, and this is the worst one in over 100 years, you have to be very, very prudent how you handle a budget. And I must commend the Premier for the approach he has taken. There's never enough money in any country to do what they want. You have to follow the news in the US for the last couple of months to see how much money they had to print. And they didn't print millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars. They went to the billions. Here in the BVI, we don't print money, we can't print money. Therefore, we have to be very, very prudent in how we choose, Mr. Speaker, to spend our money. No matter what priorities you choose to do, someone could always say, oh, you should have done that as opposed to that. You should have done B. And we heard it yesterday. Or you spend the money on item A instead of item B. But you could never do every single thing. Anything you do, somebody can criticize it. So, Mr. Speaker, it is not for us to criticize what was chosen to be done, but to make sure whatever we choose to do, we get maximum benefit from. Whether it be education or health or fishing or farming, We must make, because we can't do every single thing that everybody wants. But the things that we do choose, we must make sure, Mr. Speaker, that we are getting maximum impact for the things chosen to do. And Mr. Speaker, this budget here is $356,653,431. This is lower than we passed before. Again, Mr. Speaker, we must always look at these things in context. And I would say, Mr. Speaker, that it's a very conservative budget, because I do believe we will realize more than that. But again, in this case here, I think the prudent thing to do is to err on a side of caution, because this pandemic has no playbook, it has no start date, it has no end date. We are now down in the Greek alphabet to Omicron. No one saw this. No one saw this coming. And I would bet you that this here is not the last variant we will see. So, Mr. Speaker, this budget we have here, and I'll go through it in a little bit, various parts of it. Because a lot was said yesterday, and some of those things there I want to touch on. And Mr. Speaker, I'll start with the Ministry of Education that came under a lot of scrutiny yesterday. Education was chosen as a priority. If you look at the budget, it has some of the largest, 15% of the budget is in education. It is because, Mr. Speaker, we know that our children is our future, and we must put money into education, into curriculum, into infrastructural development. We have no choice, and that is why that is so. And Mr. Speaker, I really cannot complain with what has happened over the last few months in education. You look at Brigada Flax, repaired. You look at Robinson O'Neill, repaired. Kalakriki, repaired. And on we can go. And not only repaired, but also enhanced, Mr. Speaker, because we must move towards our blue economy. So if you look at Brigada Flax, there are solar panels there, grid tied. Mr. Speaker, I could go a little further than that. On Virginia, it's safe to say all the government facilities have been repaired. The last one, which is the Gun Creek Dock, currently under construction. Mr. Speaker, education is a golden key. It's in our album. It's in our national anthem. And that's why you see all this funding we have for education. We are in the pandemic now. And I've said this before. Anyone who believes they're going to function in a pandemic or after a pandemic the same way as before, you are kidding yourself. It is not going to happen. We have to make sure we are training our children to operate in that post-pandemic world, where things are more remote, where we're going into green energy, into electric cars, into solar panels, and God knows what else they will come up with. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm quite pleased to see the amount of money pushed into education. The minister, when he comes, of course, he'll expand more on his particular things that he's doing. And Mr. Speaker, the talk of the separation of schools in Virginia has been probably a 40-year talk. Mr. Speaker, we finally solved that problem. We're going to cabinet, not preempting cabinet, later on this month to the paper to finally solve the location for that new school. The paper is currently being drafted, where we've got the site where we're going to build that new school. We're going to get the funding, we're going to secure the funding. That school will be built. As soon as the land is sorted out, we're going to move forward with that. Mr. Speaker, I must commend again the Minister of Health for what he has done and what he's going to do in this new budget. Again, he mentioned it, the idea of social homes. Mr. Speaker, a lot of persons, like I said before, are going through a very difficult time. They've moved from the two worst hurricanes known, Hurricane Henri in 2017. They moved from the hurricanes into the pandemic, have not even caught themselves from the hurricane and now into a pandemic. These persons will not be able to get their homes built without government's assistance. Yes, we can't help every single one. Mr. Speaker, we have to start somewhere and help as many as we can. And I must say, the 9th district has gotten its share. Lots more to be done, Yes, it's in the budget. The minister has money to continue the program that he started, building social homes. We dedicated quite a few for this year. There'll be more dedications next year. I believe the ambition is at least one social home should be dedicated every single month in the new year. And I must commend the minister for making sure that this is happening in all districts. Just because we met the Aviation Clinic when we came into office with some issues, it was dedicated, and finally, Mr. Speaker, thanks to the Minister of Health, they have now fully moved into that new facility. But that's only the first step of a two-step dance. Because when I listened to the minister, we went on the property and we visited that facility, both the old and the new. I asked the minister already, moving everybody out of the old building, what plans do you have for that new building? And the minister for the third mentioned it in his presentation about these persons on dialysis. Quite a few, Mr. Speaker, of those patients there travel from Virgin Water. I think it was one from Ghana, but that one I think has since passed away. But a number of persons do travel from Virgin Water to Tatola for the purposes of dialysis. The minister has assured me that that old clinic will be converted. He didn't give me a specific timeline, but knowing the minister is going to happen as quickly as possible. That
Honorable members, it seems as if the bandwidth of Honorable Vincent Whitley has dropped. I'm not too sure if you want to continue or have somebody else start and we come back to Honorable Whitley, or else we'll have to call a recess until this is rectified as well. Okay, he's back.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, my internet dropped for a minute. I'm not sure what the last thing I said. You heard?
Start back from your last sentence.
We only remember when you were like this.
I was speaking of dialysis. That was the last thing you heard?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I was saying that the man for the third mentioned the persons in dialysis and the cost of it. But apart from the cost of dialysis itself, there are persons who travel from Virgin Islands for dialysis in Tortola. The Minister for Health has assured me that the old Iris O'Neill Clinic will become a dialysis center on Virgin Islands. He didn't give me a timeline, but knowing the minister is going to happen in the shortest, quickest time possible. This is an issue that has plagued us for many, many years. I like his plans, even for the seniors in the same location. It's been talked about for many, many years, but the minister has assured me none of the space is available. He will start immediately to bring a dialysis unit to Virgin Islands so those persons don't have to travel to Tortola. Now, Mr. Speaker, you may say, well, what's the big deal? Tortola is only a half an hour away. Mr. Speaker, I can recall very clearly, it was a Monday when the boat didn't run. I think it was a storm or something. A lady who was due treatment from Virgin Islands that day couldn't get a treatment and subsequently died. Mr. Speaker, we cannot put a price on a person's life. So I commend the minister for understanding this need in the district and for making sure it is going to happen in short order. Mr. Speaker, we must keep the environment clean. Again, I must commend the minister for all he's doing with derelict vehicles from Enegada to Yosondike in getting rid of them. The war on derelict vehicles. And I'm commending for that. And I know he will continue with that. Mr. Speaker, the pandemic is raging. Like I said earlier, we're not down to Omicron. I'm not sure what's going to be next. Mr. Speaker, the Pfizer refrigerator is here, one in Tortola, and one Virgin Islands should be arriving soon. Once those freezers are in place, you can get your Pfizer shot or your Pfizer booster right here on Virgin Islands. That is progress, Mr. Speaker. Someone said It's a government who like to take pictures and talk. But I can assure you this government has done more than just talk. Look at our weekly Just the Facts. Go look them up. If you can't find them, go on my website, vincentweekly.com. They're right there. So you can see what all we have been doing over the past 34 months, I believe, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll go to some other areas that are dear to me. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I have a very large portfolio. And I think I'm the first minister actually to hold up this particular portfolio. So for me, it has been quite a bit of a learning experience as to how do we handle all of these issues. And Mr. Speaker, I said earlier, we can't do every single thing we would like to do, but we have to make sure that whatever we do the best job at it and get the most impact. The member for 8 yesterday said that he didn't see where in the budget we had the money to do the things that we want to do for a transformational process. But I will say to you, Mr. Speaker, that every single thing that we are going to do requires money. Some require legislation. So, Mr. Speaker, environmental issues. We know for a fact that the BVI environment is critically important to its well-being. I've always said it, and I'll say it again. The BVI remains attractive to live, walk, visit, and invest. And we plan to keep it that way, Mr. Speaker. The environment plays a major role in that. Mr. Speaker, we'll be passing legislation in the new year to help us strengthen our legislation of protecting our environment. The member for the second hit it home yesterday that until we stop filling in our salt ponds in our wetlands, until we stop destroying mangroves, we are going to be in trouble. The same things that we're using to attract our tourists, if we destroy them, we are going to lose our tourism. Too many persons are filling in the salt ponds, too many persons are destroying our mangroves. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, in the new year, we have to make sure we strengthen legislation to avoid these things happening. We must, Mr. Speaker, at all costs, protect our wetlands, our mangroves, and so forth. Those persons who want to fill them in, we are either going to buy them back from you, or we're going to give you heavy penalties for destroying these critical things in our environment. Mr. Speaker, I was quite disturbed by something I heard yesterday in the concern labor. I have never disputed, Mr. Speaker, that we will always find every single person we want among our local labor pool. That's a given. But Mr. Speaker, we have to do all that we can to make sure our people are employed. We have to do it, Mr. Speaker. We must give our people a fighting chance. I'm not against anybody with coming into the country. But Mr. Speaker, if we continue to give out work permits willy-nilly, and our people are sitting at home watching persons going to work, I tell you, it is going to create a problem down the road. I've heard persons come to me and tell me, Minister, you're fighting a losing battle. I said, but I'm fighting for the people who sent me to the house. How can it be a losing battle? When you apply for a work permit, Mr. Speaker, we have to check and see if there are any local persons who qualify. We must protect our people the best we can. Yes, there's some persons who will not qualify, but there are some who are qualified. Mr. Speaker, there's a big uproar now in the marine industry where they can't get high enough boat captains on a work permit. Meanwhile, we have local boat captains sitting down not working. How can that be right, Mr. Speaker? How can I just give you a boat captain license like that and I have local persons here sitting down not working? That is not sustainable, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we have our challenges with labor. We are working through these challenges. But, Mr. Speaker, we must make sure people are given every opportunity. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, we have the Labor Education Connect to make sure where there are skill gaps, we identify them and we address them. Our ambition has always been to localize the workforce as best as we can. And I must commend all those companies who have taken the initiative to go forward and do that. Where they're seeking locals, they're giving them opportunities, they're giving them chances. Mr. Speaker, I cannot and will not give up on my people with opportunities. The person have come to me and said, oh, just stop. The locals don't want to work as they get paid, they don't show up to work, and all sort of story. I'm saying give them a second, third, fourth chance. We cannot ignore our people. Mr. Speaker, the same thing applies to immigration. In labor, we're working through issues, like I said. We finally got a work permit system online. Yes, improvements need to be there. By January, I'm told payments will also be online. And I so look forward to that. Mr. Speaker, some things happen within labor or is happening within labor that I'm very, very concerned about. So, Mr. Speaker, we shall address that in another forum. Mr. Speaker, the reform continues in labor. We're looking at the labor code, particularly in light of a pandemic. What kind of adjustments need to be made? Mr. Speaker, these things will be done. These things will really call for a lot of money. Mr. Speaker, we live in an age where all our problems will not be solved by money. Some of these problems there will be solved by creativity, by out of the box thinking, by being ingenious. Sorry, by being I'll just say creative for now. Mr. Speaker, immigration. Another issue again we have in this country. But persons who are in this country need to be here legally. We are a country of laws. I can't condone persons being in a country legally. Immigration is one of the most important aspects of any country's things to do. Like my good friend always say, the only two countries with no immigration issues are two countries, and the Beaver isn't one of them. We're an attractive place to live and work. That will continue. We have to make sure, again, we're not disenfranchising our own people for the sake of development. The Speaker, if we are developing and developing full speed, and all development is done by work permits, then who are we really developing this country for? And how are we developing this country? Our people must be given the opportunity to participate at all levels in our community. Mr. Speaker, the reform of immigration will continue. I think there's some funding there to continue that process. Mr. Speaker, Lance, I'm so happy that we finally get to a point where we can have a land distributions program. It's in the budget, a land distributions program. Mr. Speaker, it has been said, whoever owns the land owns the country. And we have to make sure that as many of our people as possible get a fair opportunity to own land in this country. This program, funded through the Money Services 7%, is going to make that dream into a reality, where land wouldn't be given once every 4 years or once every 5 years, but this would make lands available all year, every year. It's a program, a funded program. And we could do a lot with the funding that we have to make sure our persons get an opportunity to own land. Mr. Speaker, speaking of land, the Josel project, that's soon coming to a close. Hopefully we'll have those there occupied by, again, belongers, which is a priority. Mr. Speaker, we have 52 units up there, but we've had hundreds upon hundreds of requests for these. It tells me that between government and the private sector, or the combination, we need to do more stuff. Like, I didn't say exactly like this, but we need to do more stuff where persons can purchase a home at a reasonable rate. The Speaker, non-belongers land holding licenses. As the Minister for Lands, they come through me. And Mr. Speaker, we're going to make a change because there's something happening there that, Mr. Speaker, I don't particularly like. And that is, some persons hide land when they're selling. So persons don't know these lands are being sold. Or you publish a number, when you call a number, you don't get no answer. If you get the answer, you get a story. Oh, the land being sold already, blah, 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 blah. The Speaker, again, we have to give our local persons a fighting chance. We're going to make that process even more transparent by creating a register, a publicly accessible register for all lands under those licenses. So if locals are able to purchase these lands, Mr. Speaker, they will be given that opportunity. No more hiding, no more trickery, no more speculating. Mr. Speaker, back on immigration again, issue of residency. And I just want to let the public know how that happens. When you apply for residency, you apply through immigration. They collect the papers, they make sure that the paperwork is correct, is then passed on to the immigration board, where they go through the various background checks and so forth. That process may take a while depending on what the person's background is in the country that they're coming to reside from into the BVI. There is not usually much feedback on the process, and I would urge persons to avoid calling like that. We'll try to make some announcements periodically, but if you keep calling about the process, you're going to slow the process down. There's a team of persons, they meet as often as they can to deal with residency and belonger issues. Mr. Speaker, tribunal issues. I've seen an uptake in matters going to the tribunal. I'm not sure what has caused that, but I urge persons to avoid this as much as possible. Try to resolve these things outside of the tribunal. Mr. Speaker, a lot was said about NHI. NHI came on board, I think, 2015. It's now in its 6th year. It is not where it should be, but Mr. Speaker, it is still, it can be fixed. And Mr. Speaker, I can assure the member for the second was asking about it, that we will address NHI to make it a success story that Social Security is. That I promise you. Mr. Speaker, a comment was made, I don't recall who made the comment, that they were concerned that the Social Security Board didn't have on experienced finance persons. I am not quite sure what they mean by that. The chairman is a former financial secretary, highly regarded person in the financial world, Mr. Glenroy Forbes. He's the chair of the board. The directors, Mrs. Gina, the acting director, Mrs. Gina Scott LeBoynes, who's been there for 30 years. How do you mean there's nobody with experience on that board? I don't understand what that means. Reputable business persons are on this board. The board is very prescriptive. Who can sit on this board? Mr. Speaker, if you look at that board and the history of that board over the last few years, there were no complete audited financial statements from 2016. No completed audited reports, annual reports from 2016. Never had NHI annual report until 2017. Mr. Speaker, that's what you're looking for? That's not the way to go. Not because you have financial experience mean you will do what is required. I have every confidence in that board. Every confidence that they will do what the board needs to do. Every confidence. The board close to $1 billion, and I do believe if they continue on the trend they're going now, they will surpass $1 billion in the not too distant future. The member for the 8 mentioned Long Bay Beach and the sargassum issues there. I have climate change is real. And I'm seeing some strange things that I haven't really seen before, and that is sargassum in December. But if you look around, you will see sargassum is here now. It started maybe a week ago. So it's something we have to look at and see how we're going to deal with sargassum. But I think as we get more into climate change, Mr. Speaker, we're going to be seeing a lot of strange things like that. I was watching the news just this morning, and I saw this tornado in the States, a December tornado, real powerful tornado. So I do believe we have to look at how we're going to handle climate change better in the BVI. Mr. Speaker, I was attending COP26 in Scotland, and that's some of the things that we were trying to get sorted out, and that is funding for climate adaptation and climate resilience, because climate change is real. We need to do to get all those measures in place. We have a good start with the mangrove nursery. We had a little bit of funding for that. We are going to upscale that from a mangrove nursery into a mangrove bank and move forward. Mr. Speaker, a lot was said about the CDB loan that we had from, I think, 2017 or 2018, that we are still spending that money. But Mr. Speaker, we spent a long time paying interest on that money and not getting the benefit from it. We came and we met that loan there. Yes, we were able to access that money, program that money, and yes, we are going to use it. We were paying for it. But Mr. Speaker, not only did we meet, money is there to be spent. Mr. Speaker, we met a lot of bills. Mr. Speaker, it hurts my heart when I see how much money we are paying out in things that we met there. Lawsuits, millions upon millions of dollars we just given up to persons from things that happened years ago. These cows on the road, like my colleague used to say, that nobody wants to hear about. But Mr. Speaker, we have to pay these things, and it is, I'm not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mr. Speaker, we are spending millions upon millions of dollars. That $24 million there that is lost in water and sewage is a joke compared to the millions we have to pay out in lawsuits that were there from years before. Yes, you left money, but you also left bills, Mr. Speaker, that we have to pay, and we are paying them.
It seems as if the Honorable has a pause again, so we might wait a little, 2 minutes, and see if he's jumped back in. So if it inconvenience at the moment.
Mr. Speaker, is it best to call a recess for the 2 minutes? Because
Well, we were going to call a recess a while ago and he jumped back on, so I'll give him another minute and see what happened.
there he is.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Continue,
Speaker,
Honorable Whitley.
I'm having some challenges today. Maybe it's a signal to me to wrap up, but I ain't ready to wrap up yet, Mr. Speaker.
You continue speaking.
I'm not sure who's there playing with my my internet today. I'll double check who's outside my house. So, Mr. Speaker, I was talking about COVID, and I was just going to go on to the COI, because I was asked again, why are we spending all this money? The money could be better spent on something else with our foreign lawyers, I think was the term used. Mr. Speaker, all a man has is his reputation. All a country has is reputation. We couldn't sit down and let person come and say your drug dealers, money launderers, and do nothing. That money was well spent protecting the good name of this country. Mr. Speaker, this country is heavily funded by financial services. Financial services is based on reputation. If your country's name is tarnished as a drug dealing, money laundering, tax haven, God, what else they put out there, and this is out in the international press, you cannot sit down and play should put your head in the sand and pretend it's okay. You have to fight back, Mr. Speaker. And that's what we had to do. We didn't bring us on ourselves. Nobody is really against it. The member we always say for the at-large member, if you want to do a 70-year audit on a country, do that. We all agree the systems are imperfect, the systems need improving, they're not very efficient. We recognize that. As a matter of fact, if they didn't do it, we probably do it to ourselves, do a full internal audit on all our systems. If we're going to move towards self-determination, Mr. Speaker, it's based on institutional strengths. We have to create and strengthen institutions. But to do it in a way that was done, where the reputation of the territory, the reputation is tarnished, you have to fight back. It's very unfortunate, because Mr. Speaker, again, it is millions of dollars that we may have to spend. We have no choice in this matter. We have to do it. This country's reputation, this country's name, this country's well-being is at stake. Mr. Speaker, you know it is to get a bad name. Once you get a bad name, it's next to impossible, Mr. Speaker, to get it back. Next to impossible to get it back. You have to do what you have to do, Mr. Speaker, to get your name back. And we're doing just that. Mr. Speaker, we had an issue of sports tourism.
We will, I mean, again, I apologize to the public, but this is beyond our control, and this is one of the things when you go virtual, that's what happen. Continue on, Boo.
I gotta check who's my yard. Are you hearing me now, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, are you hearing me now?
Yes, you may continue.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, it's breaking my stride. Mr. Speaker, I don't wrap up. Mr. Speaker, these are very challenging times, and I commend the Premier and his team and for all the members for the direction and the priorities we have chosen. As things change, Mr. Speaker, and monies more funding become available, Mr. Speaker, we will add more things. Because so before, we all want what is best for this country, all of us, except we can't do every single thing at the same time. Mr. Speaker, like other members say, it's been a very trying year for all of us. In my district, is no different. We've experienced a lot of deaths. I lost count, but it's over 10, it's probably around 15 in the latter half alone of this year. And I express condolences to all those families, some of my families who have lost loved ones and have to grieve them. Even during this festive season, we have to grieve that. Mr. Speaker, as you drive through all the districts, you will see the many cleanup campaigns happening, the bush cutting, the road fixing. And I must commend the Minister for Transportation for organizing those things, making the districts look very much attractive. The ninth, of course, is no different. Anegada, Virginada, lots of road work and Virginada, lots of bush cutting and so forth on both islands. The places are looking very, very clean. They're saying, welcome to our islands, do enjoy your stay. Mr. Speaker, I would be ungrateful if I didn't really thank all my ministers, all that has been done in my district. They have done a lot. They have done a lot more, I do believe, than is customary, than that persons that are used to. Enegada, we have one of the last week. In fact, on Friday of this week, we're dedicating the the Taylor Faulkner building that was damaged during the hurricanes. We dedicated on Friday. As we speak, through PAHO and government, we are refurbishing the Emil Dunlop Community Center. We've had road works done there. We celebrated last month the 9th annual Lobster Fest. I'm so looking forward to the 10th. I think it's going to be one of the biggest and best ever. We've done a walk to the school. We've done a walk to the recreational activities out there. We've done the basketball court. So the children don't feel left out. We'll have a game there soon between the 9th District or Tortola and Enegada, played on Enegada. We have a lot more to do there. Mr. Speaker, the long-standing issue of lands in Enegada, we are seeing some light on that as more persons are getting not only lands, but access to lands. I must thank the Enegada people for their patience. It's been a long journey with this. I think that they've done a serious injustice by not taking the bull by the horns, sitting and listening to them, understanding deeply what their concerns are, what their wishes are, and then trying to figure out how best to address the concerns that they have. I think we've made significant progress in that direction. And for that, I'm really ever grateful. Guatemala, again, is the same. A lot of bush cutting, lots of roads being repaired, a lot of old issues being addressed. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank all my colleagues for the support during the year. I want to wish them a good season. Last weekend, we had Christmas in Spanish Town. I thank those who came. We have more activities coming to the 9th District. On Monday, we have the Parade of Lights, the annual Parade of Lights. That's usually led by Sanctuary of Hope. But put your lights in the vehicle and join the parade. I hope to have mine there decorated. We have the premier comes to 9th District, I think on Thursday, I believe it is the 17th, or Friday. With his Carolyn, I will join that for sure. Then on Sunday, we have in the 9th District and Virgin Islands the Santa Parade, where we give out our gifts to the children. We go from North Sun to the Valley. Because of the pandemic, we aren't doing any groups. I've announced the stops. You bring your children to the particular stops, you collect your gifts, and we keep rolling. I've said that before. There's no Christmas like a 9th District Christmas. We're going to create a calendar next year so you can see what all we have going on in the 9th District. It's a lot. The 9th District is very festive during December month. I want to thank the community again, the 9th District, for their confidence. It's been a rough ride. It was a very challenging time to be in government because of the transparencies that are there, because of social media, because of the pandemic and so forth. But together, working together, understanding each other, we're going to get there. I have absolutely no worry at all. We're going to get there together. I think we've been through the worst of it. From here, it's uphill, smooth sailing. So, Mr. Speaker, I am fully given to this budget here, given all the circumstances, given the reality that we currently face in the world and on the ground. This budget here, Mr. Speaker, has my full support. Mr. Speaker, with those few words there, I think I have an hour and a half left. Mr. Speaker, it's okay. But with those few, Mr. Speaker, I thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Honorable Vincent O. Wheatley, Minister of Natural Resources, Labor and Immigration, and member of the 9th District. At this time, I'll call on Honorable Sherwin D. Flax Charles, Union Minister of Trade and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today we are at the midway point before the month ends and 2021 is given her final send-off. And Mr. Speaker, before I continue, I would ask your indulgence while I read from my notes. Mr. Speaker, of course, I do understand that today we are meant to lend to the dialogue of the 2022 budget. Today we outline the manner in which our finances will be allocated to allow for protecting our people, providing them with a modicum of social services, offering them opportunities to be educated and empowered, and investing in our joint future. You see, Mr. Speaker, at the heart of our economic and fiscal considerations are the people whose best interests we are meant to preserve and honor. On that note, I would like to pause for a moment to silently reflect on the passing of Mr. Jaime Stout. As we consider the people who are impacted by our decisions today and going forward, we must acknowledge where systematic imperfections and cultural missteps have left us pained. In the last few days, the community across our islands have mourned the untimely and tragic passing of a young man who was full of promise, respected and respectful, and an extraordinary father. Mr. Speaker, I think all the members join with me in feeling the hurt that all 9 of our districts felt. not just for the burden of the individual life lost, but also for the continued denigration of our culture and values. Where are we at when young men can be so callously and senselessly mowed down? Let us take a minute to reflect silently, for as we mourn, we will be recommitted to stamping out our negligence, crime, and every other wrong that is claiming young lives wantonly. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to dedicate the next few minutes of my presentation today to Mr. Stout. I was proud when I learned that he had bravely entered the entrepreneurial market and was already impressing clients with his diligence and service. Mr. Speaker, I do not wish to offend my peers in age or what we might call the seasoned adult community, but I have a sharp focus next year on ensuring that all young people are presented with every single opportunity possible to be exceptional regional entrepreneurs. Even with the limited resources available due to the challenges and restrictions of this year, we were able to execute and support a number of projects, such as the launch of a Young Business Person of the Month initiative, a monthly show to promote young entrepreneurs, training in social media marketing, and so much more, which we will see fruition as the first month of the new year rolls around. At this point, Mr. Speaker, I must commend the Honorable Julian Fraser. He raised a critical point in these proceedings that should not be ignored. The people of the Virgin Islands went to the polls in February 2019 and made it extremely clear who they wanted representing them. Yes, I am proud to be a member of the party whose campaign built on change and transformation secured a landslide victory. I also give honor to my colleagues in the opposition who secured their triumph. The people have spoken. It is this assembly of members that they wish to have fighting on their side against economic turmoil, global pandemics, and international political invasion. So there is an onus to make sure that the soldiers chosen have adequate weaponry for the battles we must fight. As backbenchers and opposition members, it is imperative that we too have access to resources, human, budgetary, and otherwise, which will allow us not only to engage with our public, but also to act materially to see their visions realized. Mr. Speaker, I want to publicly thank the Premier and his team for working with me as we pushed aside the tide. They have tolerated my insistence, and together we have done much with little. But I am even more grateful for his willingness to give me some space with which to work my own magic. Very soon, I will be continuing to launch projects and initiatives which place local business people back in the seat of power when it comes to the determination of our economy. If I may, Mr. Speaker, I have to let the cat out the bag somewhat. The Premier's office and its partners have successfully secured a $2 million loan from the Caribbean Development Bank, which has been earmarked for trade and economic development, particularly local commerce and entrepreneurship. Before I outline intent, let me provide context. Unfortunately, when figures like these are called, before I even finish this speech, the calls will begin to flood in. Junior Minister, I have an idea but I need 500,000 in the form of a grant. Junior Minister, I want to go back to school. My people, this is our opportunity to be selflessly united and not individually motivated. There are clear guidelines we must honor to maintain this support. First, the monies will only be used for their intended purposes: business development and entrepreneurship. This will not be a get out of jail free grants carelessly distributed based on a whim. There will be careful criteria developed to ascertain the various tiers of businesses, the degree to which they impact the economy, and the most efficient resource allocation for their support. Secondly, I must stress this: we will not be fast and loose with the concept of loans. Political interference in the past has allowed governments to essentially defraud themselves, lending or guaranteeing monies to business people with virtually or literally no repayments being made. This culture of carelessness, selfishness, and government spoon feeding dependence must die. Real entrepreneurs, of course, need help, but their existence is carved from rock, solid rock, with diamond hard resilience, courage, and innovative tactics. If we are to build businesses with regional prowess and capacity, we must discard our unhealthy practices and begin to function like globally minded business people. Thirdly, any distribution of funds will be fair and transparent. Do not expect that if 250,000 is earmarked for direct grants, you or a shrouded combination of your businesses or your family's businesses will be able to walk away with 125,000. A viable economy is built on diversity, and diversity is child to variety. We cannot put all our eggs in one basket, or more precisely said, we cannot put all our eggs in your basket. Be reasonable. I understand need, but it is always a shock when I see requests from individuals for tens of thousands of dollars from allocations just barely over 100,000. Again, I remind us that 2022 must mark our recommitment to operating as a united front. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want the public to know that we see these monies as funds with which we can make a wholesale, targeted investment into the entrepreneurial capacity of our territory. This means keen management, not just in terms of putting in place and enforcing criteria, but also offering recipients of program support and awards the tools they need to progress. We will be rolling out several capacity building initiatives targeted at training entrepreneurs and building on their natural potential. This will include workshops on branding, marketing, networking, money management, collaborating with the banks, human resources, and even building and using regional channels for business. We have found that while the BVI has no shortage of keen business people with stellar ideas, they often lack the fundamental skills and knowledge to execute, even when the financial resources are made available to them. Our intention is to bring about a 180-degree paradigm shift. An entrepreneur who knows how to make lending institutions, employees, and other key partners work for them is truly unstoppable. We even want to encourage and facilitate local investment, offering successful giants the opportunity to partner with young, promising startups. This will reintroduce the powerful family legacy dynamic and bring about a new wave of entrepreneurs like the type that brought about Ramasco, Joma, Skelton Group, and Vanterpool Enterprises, to name a few. We might be called the British Virgin Islands plural, but we must act as one nation. No one of us is unto ourselves. Mr. Speaker, I would pivot a bit. As I have done in this House before, I want to publicly commend the Director of Trade and her team for their continued hard work. Challenges have left the department working even harder than ever to fulfill their mandate. I want to remind the community, though, that once we return support to their team, especially with the realization of the new improved Trade Commission dynamic, we will see a return to true business development. Because trade has always been so much more than simply license registration and regulation. Mr. Speaker, allow me to be technical for a minute. Trade is fundamental to the prosperity of any country and economy. 2, it generally leads to better wages and provides consumers with access to greater options of goods and services, hopefully at lower costs, ensuring that incomes go further, especially for the poorest in society. 3, because the BVI is a high net importer of goods, trade also has an impact on cultural values. The more domestic goods and services we provide, the more we cater to our own unique identity. 4, by extension, import substitution is key for encouraging the development of local goods and the greatest circulation of money in the local economy. 5, trade and entrepreneurship encompasses the entire economy. Therefore, the focus is to encourage all facets of BVI ingenuity so that we benefit from the widest array of opportunities available. 6, through our various connections to the world, a well-developed investment program ensures that we benefit from knowledge and skills transfer while simultaneously creating investment opportunities for our people. 7, by carefully encouraging and leveraging new technologies, we ensure that we are keeping pace with emerging e-commerce opportunities. 8, new legislation and a new trade structure will allow for greater ease of business creation and encouragement of industries. 9, for a business industry or economy to thrive, information, particularly government policies, is as equally important as money. By creating a well-structured trade operation, policies on all matters which affect business will be straightforward and transparent. Clear information allows businesses to plan more efficiently and ensures that investment is not retarded. 10, entrepreneurship specifically has the greatest potential to spur the economy in a number of ways. Growth, the success of the products and services created and sold by entrepreneurs has the potential to cascade to other businesses and markets. This is true of technological entrepreneurs. Wealth generation. Entrepreneurs frequently target new markets and tap audiences outside the focus of established firms. This creates new sources of revenue and profits. Social change. The innovative goods and services entrepreneurs offer reduce dependence on outdated processes and technologies. One example is the way smartphones have affected how businesses communicate with customers, employees, and partners. The same can be said of social media platforms and blockchain. Community development. Entrepreneurs foster a sense of community among people with common goals and interests, whether in a single neighborhood or across our territory. Their products and services has the potential to contribute to the community's social and economic well-being. 11. However, in order to fully realize the above-mentioned benefits and opportunities, it is important to have a well-funded trade organization. The desired outputs must be matched by the requisite inputs and funding. To date, a 5-year business case has been adopted for the Trade Commission, one that will revise annually alongside its work plan for the upcoming year. As a government-owned corporation, there will be support as well as oversight from the Premier's office to ensure that targets are being met satisfactorily. The traditional role of the ex officio on the board is being revised so that owner, the government in this case, can comfortably ensure that we are getting value for money. Great emphasis has been placed on developing well-crafted legislations to ensure success, not only for the institution, but businesses and the economy on a whole. The full view and vision for the Trade Commission is to work in tandem with other agencies and institutions in specific areas that should guarantee that we drive the economy in the right direction. Here are a few of the initiatives underway or being contemplated for the Trade Commission. With the adoption of the Investment Act, it offers potential investors visibility of a clear structure and requirements. The Business License Act, that is soon to follow, offers a streamlined approach to licensing and business encouragement. Once the Commission begins operations, additional regulations will be adopted, which will support the various legislations. Those regulations and legislations will be available on the Commission's website. The Commission will also develop a trade register so that trade names are protected. The system will also operate a queue system that tracks the process of the applications, and the progress is visible to the applicant online. Mr. Speaker, there's so much to come in the new year, which will truly lend towards transforming the economic landscape of the Virgin Islands. My greatest desire, though, is not only to see fiscal prosperity, but also for us to return to our glory days of socially minded entrepreneurs. Mr. Speaker, I remember fondly when being a restaurateur meant silently figuring out which students were disadvantaged and finding a graceful way to ensure they had a free meal. I remember when tycoons would approach single mothers of promising youth with offers to partially or fully fund their education. I want to challenge directly some of our most successful, just as you call on the government to be better minded towards entrepreneurs. I want to remind you of your past, even if not with money. Find ways to support our youth and other social causes. Good business cannot just mean a house on the hills and a Benz to get to work. It should also mean young people who can look up to you, families who have seen your generosity, and a community in your debt. This is true legacy building entrepreneurship. There are many social issues to which we ought to be commuted. Our young men are gone farther. Our women are being abused and our children neglected. I thank Zanta, WIN BVI, the National Culinary Team, and the Family Support Network for allowing me to commit what I could to their causes. I urge the community to join me and my team members where they can. Mr. Speaker, I want to close on a positive. I am currently negotiating a deal which will allow our students of each island to lead out the repainting of important economic murals in our district. And Mr. Speaker, I have seen artwork from these students. It is unbelievable how talented these students are. You would never think that they are teenagers in our high schools here in the British Virgin Islands. And so we must give them that opportunity to shine. Mr. Speaker, the paint and supplies will be provided. They will be supervised and extra monies will be donated to their schools and the art departments in those schools. We have schools, Mr. Speaker, and we've spoken about education, and we are doing a lot in education, but we also need the support of the communities to assist us with ensuring that our children have every single thing that they need in order to excel in our society today. Mr. Speaker, I wonder, can any business people end the year with a similar initiative? Align your brand with a final piece of beauty as we close a challenging year. For more challenges approach, certainly, but we can fight, Mr. Speaker, and thrive with BVI love, fueled by the innovation, the resilience, and the boldness of our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Shereen D. Flax Charles, Junior Minister of Trade and Economic Development, Territorial Member. I now call on Honorable Kai Reimer, M. Kai Reimer, Minister of Transportation, Works and Utilities.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's a privilege to be here today to speak on the Appropriation Act 2021. Like other members have mentioned, this has been our fourth budget, and there's some that it's quite a tedious process. And Mr. Speaker, as I look at the screen, I want to acknowledge, first of all, the staff there at the House of Assembly. I know are in isolation, but Mr. Speaker, when you look at workers filling in, I see Madam Clark there doing what someone else would be doing. And Mr. Speaker, these officers, they've worked tirelessly through this process from the inception. And they need to be acknowledged. And Mr. Speaker, this goes with the Ministry of Finance, the Minister of Finance and his entire team in terms of getting us yet here again in December for this budget that we're about to pass before the year ends. That is something that we haven't seen in recent times until this administration came into power. So, Mr. Speaker, acknowledgement needs to be given to the Minister of Finance and his team, and we know how difficult it is to get all this information and compile it so that we can be here today debating on what was done during the standing finance process. And Mr. Speaker, the members, the public officers, just like everyone else, we have gone through a tough past 2 years with the pandemic, and they have been working continuously to keep things going and making sure that government continues to operate. Mr. Speaker, yes, those public officers, and I think about the task that they had during the past year in terms of the Commission of Inquiry. And Mr. Speaker, I know it was sometime maybe a week ago or a couple of weeks ago where the Attorney General, she had a press release in terms of the number of documents that were provided to the Commission of Inquiry. Mr. Speaker, when you hear over 10,000 documents and 150,000 pages were presented to the COI, Mr. Speaker, that needs to be recognized and acknowledged that these officers, they've worked, and the AG and her team, the IRU, have gone above and beyond to facilitate this COI process. And Mr. Speaker, yes, we are at the waiting stage now based on the result or based on the report. And, we all welcomed a fair and transparent commission of inquiry, Mr. Speaker. We have challenges with how it was done, the smear campaign in terms of even before members being aware of what took place in the UK media with the territory and being labeled. And when you saw the premier standing in one of the front pages of one of those the newspapers in the UK, standing with his wife and with a set of drugs and so forth in the back. Those behind of the picture, those things were quite damaging. And Mr. Speaker, I know it was recently also the former governor mentioned that there were, government officials in high places with drug activities. And Mr. Speaker, those are things that, we didn't hear much of during the commission of inquiry. But we hope to hear, and if it's not the case, that some sort of apology be given to this territory in terms of those high officials. Because like other members have mentioned, and we have known that your name is all you got. And that is something that you definitely you have to protect in terms of your name. So, Mr. Speaker, as we await the results of the report, that is due anytime soon, we hope to move forward from there as a territory. What were revealed within the COI, we know we have some issues to address, and no one is perfect. No situation or no country is perfect, but we have been a territory since 1950 that we've been working towards who we are today. And there may have been some missteps, but there have been some great things within this territory, and our forefathers, they need to be acknowledged as well for what they have done in terms of where we are today. And as we continue on, we hope to get things right with governing and for the benefit of this territory. Mr. Speaker, yes, as we go through the budget, at the ministry, we have gotten our share of the pie, and there are so many things to get done, Mr. Speaker. So many things to get done, but we understand that all cannot be done, and with what is allocated, we'll definitely go above and beyond to do the best for this territory. Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned, public officers, and I go into my ministry, I must acknowledge my permanent secretary and the entire team at the ministry as well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during the past year, or since being elected, we have had and been going through some challenging times, and I must acknowledge the entire staff at the ministry, Mr. Speaker, from the permanent secretary to the deputy secretaries to the team, the finance team, down to the other officers, even to the office cleaner. Everyone played a vital role in terms of productivity and accomplishing quite a few projects that were long-standing new initiatives. Well, Mr. Speaker, we all worked as a team. And under my ministry, despite the challenges, financially challenged, and the budgetary constraints, Mr. Speaker, Public Works a lot were achieved. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to go through a listing. I might get in trouble for listing out some of the workers, but I must acknowledge them because they have worked. And even when we were on lockdown, many of them were still working. And this includes water and sewage. From, Director Hodge to Mr. Esward, Jamil, Kurt, Josette, Bull and his team, Merle, Skelly, Mali, Judith, uh, Coco, Chanel Mania and his crew, Jamaica and his crew, the workshop, Ella, Bank supervised the numbers. Mr. Speaker, I must acknowledge them. On the water and sewage side, we have the director, we have Brian and his crew, we have Vandy and his crew, Raga, we have Beeza, we have Boca, we have Cannon Kelly, we have Keith Smith, we have Amar Hill, um, Mega Huggins, Cannon, all those guys. They need to be acknowledged, Mr. Speaker, because many of the times when we get the call, I call them, and they execute. No matter the time, no matter the situation, they execute. And Mr. Speaker, um, I, I need to mention, as we have approved through the cabinet a salary review. And Mr. Speaker, many of the time these guys are at the bottom of the scale, and even those guys at the Department of Waste Management, they're at the bottom of the scale, but they're the ones doing the work, doing the dirty work, doing the hard work. The sewage team, you see them from time to time. I saw videos where, they come up from in a manhole, with sewage all over them. You know, um, those are things that will never be noted, but we need to acknowledge those guys. So, Mr. Speaker, within the budget, we know about the global pandemic and the budgetary constraints, and the effects that it has had on finances and governments throughout the territory. Mr. Speaker, despite the many perplexities of these realities with the COVID-19, this ministry remains laser focused on achieving with some of the initiatives to enhance the way of life and the quality of living here in these beautiful British Virgin Islands. Mr. Speaker, like anything, we had to reprioritize. We had to change some of the plans. We had to do things a bit different. And, it all were because of, the available finances and so forth. But nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, we executed quite a few projects throughout the year. And I know in 2022, with what is allocated, I know members seem to think we are not taking it serious. But most of all, this is the job that was given to me, Mr. Speaker, and I will do the best that I can in terms of completing and working towards a lot of these projects that were started. Mr. Speaker, I speak about the administration complex, for example. A main focal point for us as a government. And I am excited to report that, despite the challenges, the new impact glass, the windows and the doors, they're being installed. And that is something we hope to see completed by the first quarter of 2022. And the contractor, they're doing a marvelous job in terms of the installation. And we have made sure we have taken all the necessary measures to make sure that this is a first-class building when it's completed. When we did the demolition, we saw where a lot of issues were associated with the building. And so instead of just replacing the windows and doors, we made some, we addressed those concerns where there was opening and various things within the building so that we can have it airtight. And Mr. Speaker, though it may seem like it took a little while, it all is because too that we wanted to make sure that the environment was safe. It was suggested and recommended that the building be emptied before we started to do any work. And we actually started doing some demolition, but it affected the workers on the east or the west atrium. And we had to end up waiting a few to make sure that our persons were out of the building before we started the work. So that has happened, and we are working um, diligently. We have scaled up actually the works. We've put out a lot of tenders, and in the first quarter of 2022, God's willing, we'll see contractors um, working on the basement, working on the exterior of the building to reclad the building, and we'll also see a new elevator shaft with a new elevator installed on the west atrium. So, Mr. Speaker, we have been on pace, and we continue to carry out works on the administration complex. And tenders will be soon issued for a mold remediation. That is something that has caused a lot of persons not to be able to work in the complex. And we will send out a tender for the cleaning and the demolition of the basement. That is where a lot of it is housed. And we hope to have the administration complex cleaned, completely cleaned of any mold or anything within the spaces. Mr. Speaker, we'll also do some replacement of the fire pump and the sprinkler system. And, we'll do some renovation and upgrade of the energy center. And we'll also be commissioning a new generator. I think it's a 750 kilowatt generator that we have sourced. And we will be commissioning that early or within 2022. And Mr. Speaker, we'll then hoping to have the plans completed for the mechanical and electrical system and the ICT system. That should be done quite shortly as well. So, Mr. Speaker, works, despite the challenges, we continue to carry out the works within the Ralph T. O'Neill complex. And as was mentioned earlier by the member for the 8th, today's Honorable Ralph T. O'Neill's birthday, and we, wish him a heavenly birthday as he would have celebrated his 88th birthday today. Mr. Speaker, I heard the junior Minister for Trade speak about entrepreneurial activities. And Mr. Speaker, for generations on top of generations, we have entrepreneurial spirit within this territory. And that continues to be ingrained in us as a people of these Virgin Islands. She mentioned some of the family-owned businesses. And Mr. Speaker, there are quite a few. And many of those, most of them, they have stood the test of time within this territory. And no more than ever, we're seeing a new cadre of young persons within our territory with that passion, that entrepreneurial passion. And the interest varies from, manufacturing to clothing, to all types of aspect of industries where they see fit. And Mr. Speaker, we must provide the assistance needed so that they can continue to forge on with their passion. So, Mr. Speaker, this government, we have taken note of that. And we have taken note that, that entrepreneurial passion is within our youth and, even our mature ones. And, we're moving forward with all deliberate speed with the creation of much needed affordable commercial spaces. And Mr. Speaker, this is for those small and medium-sized businesses where persons want to have a brick and mortar building. So, Mr. Speaker, we have started the pilot project in Huntom's Gut, the First Step Entrepreneurial um, facility there in Huntom's Gut, where we are hoping to develop, up to, I would say, up to maybe 15 to 18 commercial spaces for those persons who are desirous of owning a space within that. And this is something that we hope to have throughout the territory. But we have started with a pilot project in Huntom's Gut, and Mr. Speaker, that project is moving on with what was allocated in the budget, and we'll see works continuing in 2022. But for this year, we have already completed some civil works. We have constructed some retaining walls. We have done some paving of the roadways, and we have, through the tender process, we have awarded a contractor for the procurement, construction, and the assembly of 2 commercial buildings that would be there. And Mr. Speaker, we hope that these buildings would be completed by the second quarter of 2022. Well, Mr. Speaker, we've also spoken about the Market Square project for quite some time. And this yet is another project and is another opportunity to foster where the small businesses can develop and grow. And Mr. Speaker, we have started the construction of planters at that area, at the Market Square. And in 2022, we hope to complete all the drainage and the substructure works for the Market Square. And that is where thereafter we'll be constructing about 16 kiosks that will be made available for rent for, like I said, various small businesses. Mr. Speaker, through the Ministry of Finance, will be issuing a tender document for the construction of the bathroom there at the Market Square. And, we anticipate that project would start sometime in March of next year. And we'll also see a bandstand. We'll do the lighting and the landscaping for the Market Square. Mr. Speaker, these 2 developments will offer spaces for experienced and young and upcoming entrepreneurs. And they'll be used as incubators. And we anticipate, and my hope is that they will expand beyond the small space and grow. So others who are as ambitious of owning a business would be able to take up the spaces as they move on. So, Speaker, I'll touch on a few things within my ministry. We have the shuttle services, and it was just this year where we passed in the House of Assembly where you can duty free for 2 years, all electric, cars, solar panels, and that is in an effort for us to encourage persons to go green. And we have also done our part in terms of with reducing the congestion within the city. And this is a project that we started in 2019 where we did a park and ride. Mr. Speaker, we have now procured electric vehicles, and shortly we will start this program where we'll have shuttle services within the city, starting from about 7 a.m. To about 6 p.m. from Monday through Friday, from the Prospect Reef roundabout to Port Purcell roundabout. And that is something that we are working to get started shortly. I think we are now branding the shuttles. We have already gotten insurance, and soon that program would get started. And I must acknowledge the Minister of Finance and his team for the vision in bringing that to fruition. Mr. Speaker, within the ministry, another initiative that was spoken about, and that is civil aviation. Mr. Speaker, we have been recognized as a leader in the offshore financial services sector. And this makes the territory a natural fit for high net worth individuals searching for, a globally recognized and accepted legal framework to facilitate commerce in multiple jurisdictions. Mr. Speaker, we know that these high net worth individuals, they have movable assets such as yachts and boats and aircrafts and so forth. And they need to be registered. So, Mr. Speaker, the territory has over the years provided the means by which these individuals can register their companies through the Financial Service Commission. They have also been able to register their yachts with the shipping registry. And now, Mr. Speaker, we are offering these individuals yet another opportunity to register their aircrafts through the civil aviation or the re-establishing of the civil aviation department. Mr. Speaker, so with civil aviation, Financial Services Commission and Shipping Registry, we then move to create a one-stop shopping experience for the individuals, who want this service. So through the Ministry of Transportation and Finance, we have issued an EOI, expression of interest, for a consultant to develop a comprehensive plan that will meet all the regulatory requirements for an international civil aviation organization, for it to be within those confines of the International Civil Aviation Organization for the civil aviation. And Mr. Speaker, the plan is to consider the human resources here in the BVI, and we hope to comply with the Overseas Territory Aviation Regulation, that's the OTARS. And Mr. Speaker, the plan will ensure compliance and enforcement of regulations that will be globally accepted. So, Mr. Speaker, I foresee, and this government, that the Civil Aviation Department holds lots of promise for the territory, as it provides yet another avenue to generate revenue. So, Mr. Speaker, a fully functioning Civil Aviation Department, it will allow for the expansion of services such as the aircraft engine mortgage register and the aircraft registry. And Mr. Speaker, we hope to see quite some revenue from this. So within the ministry, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to highlight briefly some of what we have been doing there. And, I now need to touch on our road network, because a lot was said about the loans, and I was happy to hear, and I definitely will touch on it, where it was said that, we had a loan, we have a loan for $65 million. And that is the only thing in terms of the infrastructure. And I too would reiterate that, yes, we got this loan from December, I think it was 2017, and nothing was done with this loan. Just the government paid quite a bit of interest on this loan as it sat, waiting for a plan that was there to be executed. I've always mentioned that, a plan is nothing more than a plan without it being executed. You know, it's like you have a wheelbarrow sitting, and unless you get up and push a wheelbarrow, it will just be there sitting, basically useless. So, Mr. Speaker, what we have done is taken whatever the plan is, revised those plans, and executed on those plans. And Mr. Speaker, yes, I know we need money because, you know, when I did some research throughout the region, you know, I see where, you know, in Jamaica, they have they rebuilt a lot of highways, and I think they had a loan. They have a loan, I think, about $800 million, where they did a highway. I think it's the north south southern highway. Mr. Speaker, even in Dominica, another loan they got there for $100 million for their road infrastructure. So yes, we must get loans if we're going to see the infrastructure that we destined for as a territory. And Mr. Speaker, I think it was written somewhere where it was said that, you know, these are not the glory days of the late 90s and the early 2000s, but still we push on. I think that was quoted by a member who was a part of those times when I guess it was the glory days. But Mr. Speaker, I also want to state that it was in the House where it was deliberated sometime back where members urged me to get a consultant to do an entire check, or for the consultants to go and investigate how we can get our roadways done. Well, Mr. Speaker, you know, I within the ministry, not sure if that member remembered that it was in 2015 where a company was hired to do the same thing, where it was they were contracted to provide the consultancy services for the road infrastructure assessment. And it also included the road paving, you know, asphalt production, the operations of public works, engineering, designs, and it came out with a lot of recommendations. Mr. Speaker, the consultancy yielded lots of recommendations for improvements. Some have been adopted and they are being executed today. Some, you know, the rest was just cast aside. But Mr. Speaker, this government, the infrastructure is important, but with the resources available, we'll try to do the best that we can with what we have available. And, you know, we have been doing that. And Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned, the $65 million loan that was spoken of so proudly, I must say that, you know, since we got into power, this government, we have made use of that fund. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to give a brief rundown of some of the projects and list some of the costs associated with those projects. Because we talk transparency and accountability. So for the 6 projects done under that RDA, and I must acknowledge the RDA, the director and his team, Mr. McMaster, I must say, since he took over the helm, most of these projects commenced. Mr. Speaker, the Hope Hill to Sabbath Hill project, that cost about 700,000 plus. And the prices fall within a range because there is still a defect liability period. So we can't say what the exact figure would be, but for the Hope Hill to Sabbath Hill project, that was from within 700 to 740,000. The Ballast Bay, that was 1 million. The Great Mountain upper and lower, that was about from the upper was 160,000 to 200. The lower side was from 430,000. The Little Dix Hill, that project was 305,000 to about 400,000, and the above Bob gas station, that was from 330,000 to up to could go up to 500,000. And Mr. Speaker, we also contracted for the asphalting that we can now traverse these roadways in a smooth manner. So, Mr. Speaker, we still have a couple projects that is yet to be completed. I know the Johnson Gut Road, that is nearly 90% completed. And we started the Fish Bay Road. And that is another very important project where we saw a lot of flooding. And Mr. Speaker, we must give the contractor and the RDA credit for getting the bypass road so that we continue with the steady flow of traffic without any major disruption. And I think that helps with for the businesses in the area so that the downtime is less. But Mr. Speaker, I know, and I want to briefly touch on some of the issues, some of the feedbacks I've been hearing about the same Fish Bay project where persons are saying the drainage is too small. And, we, based on the engineers, and I've had in-depth conversation with them, that what is being constructed and what was designed was forecasted for the next 25 years of rainfalls and the runoff. So, Mr. Speaker, we're hoping that what is constructed, and I will get another team, an independent team, to go out there and look at the design to make sure that it can accommodate exactly the heavy rainfall that is usually in that area. But Mr. Speaker, I think a lot of the issues in that area was the clearing of the drain and the debris and so forth. And that is something that would definitely be maintained. So that would contribute to the free flow of the water going out to the drainage. And Mr. Speaker, we hope to have that project completed within 6 months. Well, Mr. Speaker, with what was allocated and what is allocated in the 2022 budget, we'll continue to make the improvements to our road infrastructure. But I cannot go without mentioning what was done through the Public Works Department and some of the projects that were executed. Mr. Speaker, we did Brady Gut. We did road stabilization in that area. Upper Greenland, we did road paving. I mentioned the Ballast Bay. We did the bypass road and the bridge area. We did Windy Hill. We took up the asphalt and we are doing some road paving in the area. We did the first phase, over 350 feet of road paving. Mr. Speaker, we did Just Van Dyke. We did quite a few things there. We did the back road. We did, that was 400 feet of road and drainage restoration. Mr. Speaker, we did, so we did some sidewalks there by the A.O. Shirley grounds. We did some road improvement in George's North side. We did some in Tread Falls, and we also did a road in West End. And Mr. Speaker, on the Sister Islands, we did Leverick Bay. I think that road is supposed to start early next year. That the plans were completed for that. We did some road improvement around the valley, and we did, and we'll continue to do road works within the territory based on the finances that we have available. And I know the Minister of Finance is very supportive and making sure that we have whatever available finances so that we can get these projects started and completed. And hopefully in 2022, not hopefully, but in 2022, Mr. Speaker, we want to see the road construction, reconstruction project in Carrot Bay with the rock revetment and the drainage. And that is a project that, since the hurricane, it has been in dire need. And I must acknowledge the residents and those persons that traverse the area, that, we appreciate your patience, and, we'll definitely work to get it remedied. Mr. Speaker, I want to touch on water and sewage before a little bit. I know a lot have been said about water and sewage. And we know, it's no secret, it's no mystery that the infrastructure is aged, Mr. Speaker, it's dilapidated. And as a result, there are frequent leaks. The water line, it break. And, that is something that the department face nearly on a daily basis. And we know the results is only lots of water losses and water interruptions to customers. And Mr. Speaker, in this day and age, we definitely have to do better. And that is why, this government, we have placed great emphasis on improving and enhancing the distribution networks throughout the territory. Mr. Speaker, the strategy includes strengthening the infrastructure network with installing more pressure reducing valves, executing more leak detection exercises, and that was done where we saw in the Seacoast Bay area where persons, just because of leaks, there was an issue with water, and that fixed that problem. So with the leak detection, that is something that we'll continue to do so that we can account for more of the water that is being lost. And we'll definitely install some air release valves, and we'll do some meteorization. Mr. Speaker, the water losses since the hurricanes were nearly about 80% of what water is being produced. And this is something that I've sat with the team and we're working on to make sure that we narrow that gap. And Mr. Speaker, we have been working, and we have been installing new reservoirs. Those reservoirs were also installed to the same RDA loan, and we are proud to have installed or constructed 3 reservoirs in 3 different areas along Bush, Carrot Bay, and Zion Hill. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Water and Sewage Department, it could be a debate by itself because it just didn't start. We knew what took place in 2008, 2009 with the introduction of the bywater situation. And it was always talked about, but Mr. Speaker, it was always talked about being a statutory body. And I heard one member mention that he don't see it working. Mr. Speaker, I'm an optimist. I just don't want to accept what he's saying. He don't see it working. Mr. Speaker, this bill that has had its first reading to bring the Water and Sewage Department as a statutory body, I think would be a the right step forward in terms of tackling um, this deficit of nearly $20 million annually, and with this financial burden on government. So, Speaker, we have to get this addressed. I know one of the issues is the billing system, that it must be linked to the JD Edwards system, and having proper meters and so forth. And those are things that we would have under this authority. Mr. Speaker, we, with the support of sound legislation and the regulation to ensure that we have the ability to carry out the function, I see that the Water and Sewage Authority would definitely strive and move from the deficit that they're in to becoming a viable authority. And this government supports the authority, and we'll be pushing forward with the bill that is in the and with the first reading. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the issues with water, we have done some expansion in the past year with what resources were available. I know, again, the Brady Gut, we did a water line expansion. We did a Spring Gut, from Spring Gut to Paraquita Bay. We did another water line expansion there. We did at Diamond Estate. We got the Coxseat pump station. We got that re-engineered. That was some that was not connected for years. And the team, they worked diligently to make sure that that was working. Mr. Speaker, we upgraded the pressure management system on Just Van Dyke. The Long Trench pump station, and we quite a few others that are long-standing that we definitely will be working on within the confines of the budget in the upcoming year. So, Mr. Speaker, when I hear the member, my honorable colleague from the second, speak about the issues with water and Just Van Dyke, Mr. Speaker, I listened keenly, and I heard the kudos for some of the works done in his district. But Mr. Speaker, water was also an issue within his district, and that has been regularized. And with the pressure management and all that was done, I'm not sure if the member just didn't want to say that, yes, we understand that there will be breaks in the system, but this outage was nothing substantial that, well, I wouldn't say substantial, so I take that back, because where there's no water, it is an issue. But Mr. Speaker, the team worked to have it rectified, and they needed some additional assistance, and they called over for additional assistance, and that was addressed within a short space of time. So, Mr. Speaker, that is something where we'll definitely continue. All islands we are important, and we definitely work to make sure that they have a consistent flow of water. Mr. Speaker, the member for the third, he spoke about the water as well, and that is 2.3 million gallons daily, and only receiving 1.9 gallon, 1.9 million gallons of water. And Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate, because when you read, through the contract, that initial Bywater contract, and see why we are in this position today. Yes, we have, the plant is producing the water, but there was no effort to fix the infrastructure. And that is the reason we are plagued with this high bill. I also heard the members speak about the plans that they were constructed free. I've never heard it where anything is really free, Mr. Speaker. I know since coming into office, and thank God we have finally reached December 2021, where we'll no longer have to make a payment of $500,000 every quarter. That was started in 2017 when there was a supplementary agreement, or when Seven Seas bought out the Bywater contract. So, Mr. Speaker, it's not labeled in the contract as for the plants. But, Mr. Speaker, I know there is something called operational cost. I guess they didn't want to label it capital cost, but it's a payment that we had to make as a government. As I said, it was $2 million every year to Seven Seas. And finally now it's a payment that we'll no longer have to make. And we will see a reduction in that $20 million deficit in 2022 and onwards until the contract ends in 2030. Well, Mr. Speaker, within that time, we hope to make some strides, like I say, in fixing our infrastructure, adding meters, doing leak detection. Well, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to make that point clear that that was a payment of $2 million annually. And, I never heard it. It's just that, it was said in the ministry, and as we go through the budget process, we always wonder what was this payment being made for. But like I said, it was not a capital cost in the contract, is an operational cost. But I guess some more research would have to be done on that. Mr. Speaker, the member for the 8th was quite passionate in his debate last night about sewage in the eastern Longloop area. And I'm not sure if he was cognizant or he was fully briefed on what he was saying in terms of only $65,000 was spent for sewage in the past 4 years. Mr. Speaker, that is definitely far from the truth. And, I want to let the member for the 8th know that we take sewage quite serious. We also understand that we had the pandemic. We had a lot of down days. We had a supplementary budget. Things were moved around so that we can, be a healthy community. Well, Mr. Speaker, when that member could publicly and proudly speak about just $65,000 being spent in the last 4 years on sewage, I'm not sure who he's trying to, fool. I heard him mention some words as, playing Dolly House and all those kind of things. Mr. Speaker, I really don't get involved in those things, but I do believe in the facts of things. I know when we did the launch and we talked about the project and getting the project started. And Mr. Speaker, we had quite a few shutdowns after that. But, I can proudly say that we have spent in excess of, $350,000 in works just this year alone. So I want the member of the 8th to come back and correct that statement, because it is totally false. And I don't want the public to think that he is someone that is misleading, but maybe he was just misinformed with his information. But he can, contact my ministry, or I can give him the reports, which he never asked for what was spent in the last 4 years. I've heard him say how much he have the works he did while he was there. Well, Mr. Speaker, I am not one, or this government is not one to play dolly house or play games with people's lives. So I just hope that he will get the opportunity to address what he said in terms of the sewage in the Eastern Langlo area. Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that, I mentioned my ministry and all the works done. And, Mr. Speaker, I heard the member for the 6th say that, she is happy to be a part of this team during this time. And Mr. Speaker, I too want to acknowledge the leadership of the Premier in terms of his diligence, in terms of his steadiness with the finances. We are in line with the audited finances. We are hoping to get I think the last year submitted. Mr. Speaker, we take these things serious. And, with this global pandemic that we are facing, we definitely have a lot to give God thanks for. And I want to say, Premier, I acknowledge your leadership and the rest of the team. And this is the best team ever. And, I would go to bat. And, I play sports a lot. So I know what team works and the importance of it. And I want to say, as we look forward to the new year, we continue to work in harmony and work for the people of this territory. And, Mr. Speaker, before I wrap up, I want to acknowledge the people of my neighbors in the 5th district. I couldn't be here, Mr. Speaker, without them. And I must let them know that I appreciate them. I appreciate the support that they continue to give me. I appreciate the criticism when they send it my way. I know nothing would ever be perfect. Everything would never be perfect. And, I continue to listen because that is the way we learn. We learn through listening, and I am a keen listener, and I continue to appreciate the calls and the support and the messages from you, the people of the 5th district and the entire territory. And, as we are in the holiday season, I ask that everyone continue to be safe. I acknowledge those families that are grieving for the loss of loved ones, for those that, died naturally, for those that died through COVID, those that died violently. I myself have lost 2 family members within a space of a month or so. So I have some understanding as to what one may be going through. Mr. Speaker, I must call a few of those names, like Anthony Tinman Barber, his family, Miss Sylvanie Young, Peter Janet, Officer Smichael, Miss Pixie Hart, Leah Alfred, McGregor Williams, Miss Rosa Vanterpool, Sir Renard Huggins. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Jim S. Stout, I must call his name because, he was a young man in this community, outspoken, hard worker. And, I reflect on a voice note that he sent to me during, a few days before he was brutally murdered. And, it touched me. The appreciation and his involvement and his hard work. Mr. Speaker, I must and I spoke to his mom, and I just want to publicly offer my condolences to him, to his family, and to all the families that have lost loved ones during this past year. So, Speaker, we always need to put God first. He is in control, and he know exactly the reason why, and we can't question decisions he made. And Mr. Speaker, we know that it's still hurtful, but we know that God is in control, and I ask that their souls be at peace. So, Mr. Speaker, with those words, and with the balance of my time that I have left, I can offer it to someone else. But I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to speak on this Appropriation Act 2021. And as we go through this process, again, I acknowledge all those involved, and I say happy holidays to all, and I ask for a prosperous 2022. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kai Reimer, Minister of Transportation, Works and Utilities. At this time, we'll take a break for lunch, and we resume at 2 o'clock. This house is now on recess.